and this is episode 2 of the little vlog I've started. And I am here today with Rob Webb, who is an old friend of mine and colleague, and he is a certified fundraising executive. He's been doing this forever. He has to have been because I've known him forever. He was actually an 8th District City Council person way back in 2000, neighbor here, and knew him from the YMCA. And he has loads to talk about and really great advice for nonprofits who want to increase their bottom line. So welcome, Rob. How are you there in Hawaii?
Yes, I'm here on Maui, Hawaii. And to clarify, I am actually my CFRE expired a few years back so that's my first advice to nonprofit people. Once you get that CFRE, put it on ice if you're busy, or make sure you get your continuing education units to renew it. Don't let it expire.
There you go. Good advice. Very good. Doctors, lawyers, anybody else listening, don't let your license expire. That's good.
Yes, yes.
So, Rob, I was just curious about some certain little things. So people who are starting out in fundraising for nonprofits, often they don't have any experience. They just got a job. Maybe they're event planners, maybe they're brought in because you can plan a gala and you're going to make us a lot of money, or you've just been working here for so long and we love you. Can you be in charge of fundraising? They're not CFREs, so they don't have anything yet to let expire. And so when they start learning, they learn sort of math about it, right? And you need to ask people X number of times, and you need to ask for this much and whatever. So one of the things that I'm curious about, because sometimes it seems like if I give somebody $25, then I am on the list, I'm being asked a lot. What's your thought on that? And is there a time when it becomes too much?
Well, first of all, Leslie, I don't know that any one of us get into fundraising. We grow up as children and say, I want to be a nonprofit fundraising professional. I think we all get into this by accident. I was a swim coach and they told me I had to be a part of this fundraising campaign. And I said, I don't want to do that. But then years later, I was a CFRE teaching people all over the place how to conduct fundraising campaigns. To answer your question, can you ask too much? Yes, you can. But I think it's more about how you ask than how much you ask. You got to develop the relationship first. If you and I just meet and I say, and by the way, Leslie, can I borrow $20 to get home? Because I don't have gas. That's just not cool, right? If we have a relationship and you know me for a while, I can ask you for money probably. And I think too many organizations tend to bypass that. They reduce this process to a culture of charity where the donation is a transaction versus a culture of philanthropy where we're focused on developing relationships and what's best for the donor, not necessarily how do we get that gift.
Interesting. So you're mentioning a difference between charity and philanthropy. So you said charity is more transactional. So
the culture
don't
of
mind
charity
expanding
I define as more transactional, where the culture of philanthropy is more relational.
Okay, so charity is more like begging on the streets.
It's a good analogy, perhaps.
Feels that way, right? Because that's giving
we all feel
charity.
Like we're doing that in this business at some point in time, but that is a paradigm we've got to get past. And so many people don't like to ask others to give. And so many of our board members and nonprofits, there was a study that said that like a majority of the nonprofit executive directors hate asking for money.
Right.
And we've got to get past that paradigm. We're taught as children not to ask for this and don't ask for that. And it's taboo to talk about money and ask for money. Mark Victor Hansen, who is kind of a mentor of mine, and his wife, Crystal, wrote a book, and it's called Ask: The Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. If we don't ask, we'll never get anywhere.
Sure. And Tony Robbins says you have to ask intelligently. Right? You need to do some research, and
that is very important in this business. I think, okay, so we talked about how you ask versus how much you ask. One of the things we teach at nonprofit campaigns is how to conduct a volunteer-led, staff-managed annual support campaign where all of our volunteers, all of our members, everybody involved in this organization goes out and tells their story about why they support the organization for maybe 1 month of the, and this is our campaign, and they tell their story and they ask others to join them at their level of giving. If they say no, that's okay, because we've provided the best form of advertising for this nonprofit there is. Word of mouth advertising for somebody who's passionate and cares about the organization. It just so happens that I've been teaching these campaigns for 26 years. That's exactly what we did at the YMCA.
Exactly what we did at the YMCA.
And the YMCA has produced so many good nonprofit fundraising consultants, and people like Paul Netzel that have been mentors to me for 40 years in this stuff. They all came from the YMCA. They taught us well as kids.
Yes, they had a very good system too. And the other thing that they did was made sure that the person who had the best relationship with that contact was making the ask.
Yep.
So the who was in there too, not just the how, not just how much, but who. So going back to what you're saying, the relationship is
there's a lot of reasons why people give money, and it's not because of the tax deduction. It's it might be because they're passionate about what you do, but the most important, the number one reason people give money to nonprofit organizations is because someone they know and respect asked them to give.
Right. And that's why all this peer-to-peer fundraising that's become so popular is, so successful. The Long Beach Gives, Giving Tuesdays, all of those
what
things.
A great thing that Long Beach Gives is done in the community. Yes. And I've been following that. I'm kind of got 1 foot in Hawaii and 1 foot in Long Beach right now. Sure. And I've been following what that is. And I just did a show on I do a weekly show on nonprofit fundraising. We just interviewed somebody about their Giving Tuesday success story. And there's just tremendous opportunities and things going on right now.
Right. And I've seen individual organizations create their own day of giving and just been wildly successful. And a lot of it was the matching funds that sort of helped generate more enthusiasm and just fueled the fire a little bit.
Yeah, and those matching grants and matching gifts are important. They can come from mostly individuals. I feel they come from. I had a meeting with some Maui nonprofits and the Hawaii Community Foundation this week about that very subject, and how can the Community Foundation provide some matching gifts for a lot of these nonprofits that are out raising money. Very important.
Good. Now, on the other end of that equation is, how many times should you thank a person? I don't know how many boardrooms I've been in where like, oh, the thank you notes are on the table when we get there. You're writing thank you notes tonight, and we each write a note to a different donor and we all sign it, pass it around the table. Is there a right or wrong number? Is there, and also sometimes we want to, as a PR thing, we want to give somebody an award or something that says how much they gave and out of appreciation. And then sometimes there's some pushback, like, I don't need you to buy me a crystal trophy for my $25,000 matching gift. So what's your thought on thanking and appreciation and what's appropriate?
Very good question, because as you said, that thank you right after the gift, as fast as you, within 48 hours of the gift, the more personal and handwritten it is, I think the better. Can you thank people too much? Maybe. You nailed it right on the head. Donors want their donation to go for the cause. They don't want you spending money to give them thank you gifts. And some people love that recognition, while others would rather not be recognized for their gift and just be anonymous. And it's important as we develop relationships with donors and find out what motivates them to give, and that tells us how we can thank them. I'd love to be able to put in the front page of the newspaper, everybody that gives to my organization, and some people will love that, but others, they shy away from that kind of recognition.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the newspaper, because there are some funders, there's some nonprofits who have said, Leslie, I need your help with press relations, because our grantors ask, when have you been in the newspaper? What are you doing? And they want to at least see that there's outreach going on, that that logo is showing up in more than just their website, and that there's traffic being driven to their website, right? So maybe their logo is there, but they want to know you're getting the word out about your organization and making it thrive and keeping it sustainable so that their money's not going down the drain.
Yeah, the good old-fashioned press release is still important. Being able to reach out to the media. I think more and more now there's so much diversity in the media. It used to be there was the Press Telegram, and that was the media, and then there was the Grunion Gazette, and we had competition there. I think they both own each other now, right?
Yeah.
But now look at Long Beach and look at all these diverse sources of media, and it really, I think it's once again to develop a relationship with the media and the people that are telling the story. Is now much more important than the olden days of just sending out that press release to everybody.
Yes. And yes, you're absolutely right. And people have a tough time sometimes realizing that they need to play nice with the media.
Everything is about relationships. People, we had a conversation in our masterclass this week about foundations and writing grants, and the grant writer that was there was saying, look, this is not a guessing game. There is staff there that you can develop a relationship and ask these questions, but rather than just guessing when we're writing out grant applications.
That is funny, isn't it? Like that I've been in that situation where I'm writing a grant for a nonprofit. Well, doesn't say. So just call them.
Just give them a call and ask. They want to help organizations. They don't, it's
then you're on their radar too. Oh yeah,
it's not like a contest to see who can jump through the most fire hoops to get the funding.
Right. Well,
it seems that way sometimes when you're writing a grant.
Yes, I had the wrong font size.
And that's something they taught us in the thing. Make sure that if it says times 10.5, right, times 10.5, they've got a stack of grants this big for this amount of money, and it's really easy for them to say, whoop, nope, and just not, and they don't even get it. And you might have the best grant out there, but if you didn't follow some of those little silly rules, it won't even get.
It's an easy way for them to weed them out. Yes. So speaking of grants and foundations, so I work with some people who get frustrated with foundations when they say things like, when we don't exist or when we stop our funding, how will you subsidize this program? And a lot of times they're like, we won't. This is your mission is to fund XYZ program. And so we're going to develop XYZ program. And maybe it fits well within their mission. Sometimes there's some mission creep, and it's like, well, you shouldn't be applying for that anyway, but sometimes it's well within their mission. And then there's some foundations that are like, we're dumping all this money, not dumping, we're investing all this money into organizations year after year after year. When will it stop? And then you say, well, what is the role of the foundation? If their mission is to help children's, birth to 5, and we have 4 organizations that supply childcare and preschool birth to 5, then isn't that the perfect match they should be just giving to year after year? So what's your thought of that? I know there's like 4 questions in there.
Yeah. What was the first one again?
It was. Yep. Oh, how are you going to sustain this after our funding ends?
There you go. Thank you. There's a lot going on there, and I want to get to a slide I've got somewhere in here about that pie chart where this money comes from.
Okay.
I have come from the camp that I want to teach organizations how to sustain these programs after that foundation stops deciding that is their giving priority. And there's a science and a bit of an art to this. Now, sometimes the answer to that foundation very well may be, if you stop funding us, we're not going to continue this, depending on the situation. But most of the time, I think I want foundations to, if I had my magic wand and could wave it, I would want all these foundations to give capacity building grants to so many of these nonprofits. Okay. Rather than fish for you, they can teach you how to fish. And it just so happens that I have a consulting service that would love to come out and teach you that when you get that capacity building grant. All right, what was question 2?
Well, wait, so give us an example of a capacity building that maybe an organization that does give to, young children. What would a capacity project look like?
Well, let me give you a great example. Let's say the founder of that organization for those young children is getting in their 60s and 70s, and that person wants to retire, but they don't. We have a thing in this industry called founder's disease, right? So they want to retire, but they want to do it right, and they want to sustain this organization for the rest of their life. And this person hasn't collected a salary, but now we need to hire an executive director to replace the founder. There's a salary that's needed in that, or maybe we want to expand our development efforts, and there is a salary. We're going to hire a development person, and we're going to actually do. It's really hard for organizations to make that jump. And with a capacity building grant, they can come in and fund the jump costs for the interim, and then allows that organization to put our programs into practice, and that annual support campaign that's asking for money, fundraising events that are fun but don't burn out your volunteers
and staff.
We do a training. We have a training on our online training course called the 12-step cure to special event addiction. And
admit there's a problem.
If in some organizations are spending too much time on special events, which are very time consuming and burn out your volunteers. And right now, I mean, we're all looking forward to getting dressed up. We've been in COVID, right? So we've been doing all these virtual things forever. I mean, I'm looking forward to putting on a tuxedo and going to a gala. But back in the day when I was doing that every weekend, it got a little bit old.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of things that nonprofits can that we need to start diversifying our funding. Can I go to that pie chart and show you that real quick?
Go ahead and share that.
I'm going to try to pull this up. Well, let's see. I always mess this up, so just give me a second here. I'm going to hit the share button. And there it is. Come on.
There we go.
This pie chart is kind of a couple of years old. So it's actually 2016 numbers. Now, the numbers thankfully go up every year as far as the totals, but the percentages stay about the same. When you look at foundations, they make about 15% of the total contributions going to nonprofits in the United States every year. And thankfully, during 2020, that number went up a little bit. And God bless them, because they funded a lot of really important things when things were bad during the pandemic. But if you look at the total pie chart, corporations are giving about 5% of that, and that funding went down in 2020. When you take
makes sense. Right?
Foundations were making money because the stock market did good. If their investments are doing good, they've got money to give away. And that's the other thing. If their investments go bad and they lose money, they're not giving as much money away. And so we've got to be diverse. There's an 80-20 rule in fundraising, where if you take this 72% of individuals, and you really need to add the 8% of bequests on the side, because bequests and planned gifts are from individuals. So now 80% of our funding is coming from individuals. And I think most nonprofits have it backwards, and they're spending 80% of their time focused on foundations and corporate gifts, and maybe 20% of their time focusing on the individuals. We got it backwards. We should be spending 80% of our time focused on the individuals, focused on planned gifts and helping people deliver that legacy that they want to give. The other thing is, when you look at this pie chart, I think corporate gifts are a little misleading. That's Pepsi. Those are those big ones. These guys aren't giving gifts because it's a tax deduction for them. They are using their marketing dollars usually to give these gifts. They expect some return on that investment in that, as far as advertising and that what's that term that we all use right now, the feel good term for corporate giving. I can't remember what it is right now. But my point here is,
It's fuzzy wuzzy.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Well,
They're
and that's why they'll present a check at a large sporting event.
and it'll be a huge check, and it'll be
Yeah.
at that large sporting event,
Right.
and they want recognition for that gift. I think what this pie chart, and thank you Giving USA for creating these reports, but they're missing the boat a little bit. What this pie chart misses is the vast majority of businesses out there aren't the corporations that we look at, like Pepsi, or in Long Beach maybe it's TABC or whatever it is. There are a lot of mom and pop businesses that are sole proprietors and LLCs. And these people are giving gifts from the more like individuals, but their businesses are giving gifts, and they're giving money away. And we spend too much time focusing on that big corporate giver that is here on Maui, Oprah Winfrey has a house down the street, and I have clients that will sit down and have a brainstorming session. Well, if Oprah would just give us money, we wouldn't have to worry about this stuff. And it's like, well, which one of you guys know Oprah? No, okay, well, don't worry about Oprah. Just move on.
That's funny. This is very informative.
Okay, so I want to talk a minute about the pyramid of giving, because down on the bottom it talks about all the ways that money come in. These are typically your annual giving we're talking about, right? And we're focused mainly on individuals with this pyramid of giving, so they could be giving online. In the bottom of this is that red area. I call those passive areas of giving. They're giving online via something that you sent out in an email or on your social media campaigns. I'm here to tell you, direct mail is not dead. There are still a lot of people that like to give and I'm one of those people that I get a direct mail piece and I open every bit, and I'm looking to see who's given and who the board members are and how their solicitation is done.
I do the same
benefits and special events. All of those are what I call passive forms of giving. And the goal is to bring them to what we call an high impact annual campaign, which is that volunteer led, staff managed campaign at the end of at the beginning of the year, I believe, so they can pay it off, their gift in a pledge, and that can be paid off in monthly or quarterly or all at the end of the year. Benefits and special events, in my opinion, are fundraisers, not fundraisers. When you look at the cost of renting a facility and going through the process of gaining all the gifts for the gala and everything that goes in, or I think a lot of times it's a lot easier to take one donor to lunch, and you can make as much money and ask for a major gift ask that's gonna raise as much money as that special event without a whole lot of headaches. Let's look at golf tournaments as an example. There are people out there golfing in these golf tournaments that have no idea what the nonprofit is they're supporting.
Right.
But they're there to play golf, and their buddies are playing golf. But is that really the best thing to advance the mission of your organization? So what we specialize here at Nonprofit Campaigns is helping people. All of those direct mail and social media and online giving is very important. A couple of special events a year, I think no more than 2, is very important. It's what we do with those donors after they give through those channels. If we're just leaving Mrs. Smith, who gives, you happen to be Mrs. Smith, by the way.
Yes.
Mrs. Smith gives $100 to an organization between a direct, because she's received something, an email or a direct mail gift. That gift's probably going to be closer to $1,000 if we develop a relationship with Mrs. Smith and bring her into that annual campaign. And then we start focusing on major gifts and growing those gifts. And maybe we have capital and special campaigns. A lot of organizations say, well, I don't have a brick and mortar need, so I don't have a capital campaign. If you look at the most successful nonprofits in the country, they are either planning for, conducting, or wrapping up some kind of a major capital or special gift campaign. It's called you're just flexing and working out those muscles, so they're there when you need them. And of course, at the end of the day, that planned gift or estate giving, and that's really the goal, right? These people want to leave a legacy. I forget the amount of how many trillions of dollars in the next 20 years that are going to be passed down. And and that's really an important part that so many nonprofits overlook. And it's really a simple set up a legacy giving society. The YMCA, they call it the Heritage Club. And you remember how it's just part of the culture of the YMCA that we all participate in the annual campaign. And of course we're gonna, I'm a member of the Long Beach YMCA Heritage Club from some vehicle that I put together years ago that I'm still a member of.
Yes. I think what happens for organizations that start with a lower socioeconomic base, they're maybe, feeding, that's their target market, and then that's who's volunteering. It's hard for them to say, oh, I'll just talk to people and ask them for money, instead of, why don't we hold an event so people feel like they get something out of this? So I think that that's probably, especially for new nonprofits, like you said, it's a fundraiser. It does give them a lot of awareness in the community if they are actively promoting their event, and sending out that press release, and using their social media effectively, and going to different things and talking about it, etc. So then they go, okay, so we got these people to give $20 a ticket or whatever, and buy some raffle tickets or whatever. If only we could get some $5,000 donors, boy, we'd really hit it. And so I think that's part of it. Do you see that? Is that something you'd agree with?
Absolutely. And then they focus on the special events, because it's not that they don't want to develop a campaign that's going to ask for money. They just don't know it exists. They don't know how. And that $5,000 donor that you're talking about usually comes in to start looking for those corporate gifts, and using that person to be a sponsor. Cause-related marketing. That's what I was trying to remember that term.
Okay. Oh, yes, cause marketing. Yeah, I'm like, that's
I knew I'd remember it sooner or later.
It's funny how terms change, right? I'm like, yeah, that's just giving to a nonprofit.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's in these corporations are looking for that return on that sponsorship, if you will.
Right.
So that's really where it comes from. They're holding too many special events. How do we get it? Well, let's go after a few $5,000 sponsorships. And of course, we've got the direct mail appeal, and we've got we're going to send out, year-end giving. Right now, a lot of money is given at the end of the year, sure. Right? Giving Tuesday is set on the first Tuesday after Thanksgiving. And, there's just so much effort. Everybody's putting all this money into that at the end of the year. I am one of those that believe I don't want to send out a direct mail or an email or ask anybody for money until I've had a chance to sit down one-on-one with them, with a volunteer that they know, and ask them to make a gift to the campaign. That's why these campaigns are held in February and March. March was Red Cross month that was my first consultant in Long Beach, was the Long Beach Area Red Cross, creating a campaign like the YMCA. And that's when I realized, I can make a living doing this. Okay.
Right.
Why don't we get all of our volunteers and ask that person to make a pledge of $1,000 or $5,000, or even if it's $150 that can be paid off throughout the year. And then if we invite them to a special event or send out something, it's gravy. If the first thing that we do with that donor is send them an email or a direct mail thing, and they give $25, psychologically, I've given for this fiscal year. I don't need to give any more. Well, give them that. Let's be strategic and have an end game about this. And the first ask of the year is to make a pledge to support our annual giving campaign. And that's just what we do. Then we focus on all those other things.
Very good. Well, we are almost at a wrap, but I do want to go back to my 25 questions about foundations and ask, so what do you see as their role? So if the foundation is set up and said, hey, we're going to help, kids with measles, and then you treat kids with measles, but then they say, when it's over, when our funding ends, it's like, why would their funding end? If that's what their mission is, and they're probably using some sort of endowment, right? That's how a foundation would keep funding itself. So what's your thought? Should a foundation just keep funding the things that fall right in line with its objectives, or should it say, nope, 2 years on, 2 years off, or, lots of different rhythms out there and rules that are followed?
I think if their mission is to fund organizations that serve kids with measles, we better be serving kids with measles before we go out and ask for that funding. We don't want to say, hey, they're giving money away for measles. Let's create a measles program. So many of these nonprofits twist and mangle their mission to fit the grant.
Sure, the mission creep.
Grants to serve their mission. And now we can go after that grant. And if they give us $50,000 or $150,000, we can serve more kids with measles. We can do better things for these kids with measles. The problem is that a lot of these foundations will fund measles for a few years, and then, okay, now our focus is mumps.
True. They do change focuses.
And now if all of our eggs are in this one grant, now we can't continue the measles program. So,
right.
Now, I'm not saying that there are certain programs that we can develop that fit right in with our mission. That could be a program that's developed. And I think it's really things that enhance the programs more than creating a whole new program. I think you said an example of somebody, a nonprofit, that said to a foundation, how are you going to fund this when we're done? Well, I'm not. I mean, that might very well be a good answer in some particular places. I come from the camp that I want to teach our nonprofits to go out and find the funding that fits their program. And if it doesn't fit their program, move on. There's plenty of other funding sources out there.
Yes. Well, including fees. I think so many people want to make their programs free. And, if you could charge $1, if you could charge $5, then that's something, right? And but that's a whole other episode.
Well, that is a whole nother thing. I have found, so I teach, I have online giving courses. We do a new thing, the 6-week masterclass, it's only $250, and it's 6 weeks of semi-private one-on-one type of instruction in a Zoom class like this. And I have found that if I give somebody this 100%, they may not appreciate it. Where if I say, what can you afford to give? And we work with a person on that, I do give financial aid as an LL. I'm not a nonprofit. We're an LLC, but I believe in what we teach, and I don't want anybody to miss out for lack of ability to pay. And so there is, so I believe that we need to be paying something. So we tend to value things that we pay just something for.
Yes, I agree.
An interesting note on that is I just had a philanthropist offer to sponsor people in our next 6-week masterclass.
That's fantastic.
So that's like a whole nother thing for me, right?
Yes.
And then going back to your original question about grants, all of the nonprofits out there are all complaining, these foundations, they don't want to fund salaries. And
right. That is another thing that comes up.
Yeah. And it's like, well, how do we produce this program? Salaries is all we've got, right? I got all these people are out. These are nurses helping people with measles, and I can't, no nurses, no measles program. Right. So,
right.
And then of course the foundations are on the other side of the table going, what's wrong with these nonprofits? Why can't they get themselves together? And we have to fund the same people over and over and over again. And it's like, well, that is kind of your mission.
Right. So there's a conundrum there. I don't know that it'll change. It's just
once again, if all of us, and there's the other thing, those young nonprofits that are getting started now, your half-hour show is going to be an hour. I know it. Those young nonprofits that say, gosh, but our people aren't rich. Guess what? The average Joe is funding nonprofits. It is the median people in America that make the most donations. It's not the rich people. If you go look at this per capita, the average guy is given a lot more per capita percentage of what he makes than the rich people out there that we all want to go after.
Well, and it's funny, we're talking, and I'm remembering back in the day when we were working on the campaign, the kids campaign for YMCA, and we were all of these, young people that were there to, we're going to raise money, and we were each on the hook for $500. And I remember you saying, if you want to send a letter to every person on your Christmas card list and ask for $5 each, you can make your $500 that way. If you want to ask 5 people for $100, you can make your $500 that way. And there was a woman who said, if all you can do is bake a cake, then bake a cake and take it to work and ask everybody to chip in $5 for the YMCA for taking a slice out of the employee lunchroom. I'm like, that's brilliant. So there are ways you can bake some brownies. What?
I used to teach that.
Well, that came from, do you remember Betty?
Oh, Betty. Yes. I remember Betty from TABC. Oh, and she did. She reached out. Betty raised a lot of money and it was all TABC employees.
Yes. Yes. And that was the one. She said, anybody can bake a cake. Yeah. That tastes good, right?
Yeah.
You charge $5 and you take that to work.
We had so much fun in those. And
they were fun.
And I'll tell you, here's a couple things for our board of directors out there.
Okay.
I like big boards. Small boards you need 3 people to form a nonprofit. That's not a board. Those are people on a piece of paper. The average board is about 16 people in the United States. And the larger, more successful organizations have more people on their board of directors. So therefore, we should all be looking for more boards. The other thing I hate is that give, get, or get out of here policy. There's got that now. Talk about a culture of charity. Everybody's got to give, get, or get out. That's just really not cool, right? We all have something to give, and yes, we all should give our time, talent, and treasure. The other thing nonprofits do that I think is a big mistake is they say, okay, right now every board member this year is going to give $500, and they set a minimum, and minimums become maximums. And it's not about what we give. There's somebody that could be given $5 a month, and that is a meaningful gift to them. And somebody else might be given $5,000, and that might be less meaningful than that guy that's given $5 a month. So,
yes, you're right. That happens with service hours and organizations too. So you have to meet this, and you come in 1 hour shy or whatever. Yeah, but if you just say, "Hey, come when you want," they tend to give more. Yes, it's interesting, isn't it?
We all need to be focused on how we can develop that culture of philanthropy within our organizations, and that needs to come from everybody that's, from the person cleaning the toilets to the CEO. And in some organizations, that's the same person. But it just needs to be what we do, and that we focus on relationships and what can we do for the donor, and everybody's important.
Very good. Well, I appreciate your time so much. So I will put your website, which is nonprofitcampaigns.com, on the slide at the end. So if you're interested in looking up Rob Webb on his website for consulting or to take one of his master classes, you heard it right. It's $250 for 6 classes. They're 90 minutes each. That's $41.50 per class.
Yeah, you did the math on that. Thank you.
I know.
Only 41. I got to be raising the price, and we plan to raise the price on this. We did our first master class this year. It was such a phenomenal success. We decided to do it one more time before the end of the year, starting November 3rd. But we're keeping it at $249 this year. Next year, I think, $500
might go up. Yes. Well, and it's still a bargain. So you get some one-on-one time. There's lots of great things in there in each.
And the other thing that's cool in the masterclass, everybody is they're all becoming friends. It's kind of like your leadership Long Beach class that everybody
right.
be your best friends for. You may not see them for 20, 30 years, but then you're hugging and crying when you see each other.
Yeah. It's funny what 6 weeks can do, isn't it?
Yeah. This is a group that is there, and I'm listening. We have a Facebook group, and one masterclass member is asking a question in the group today, and other members are answering, and I'm just like, we've developed. It's just such a cool thing.
It's a community.
I'm blessed to be able to help nonprofits and have the job I have.
That's great. So congratulations on that. You started it last year amid COVID. You did the big pivot, and I appreciate your time once again. And so tune in next time. I don't know who the guest will be. It'll be somebody else fascinating as well.
I enjoy watching all your shows, Leslie. You're doing a great job out there motivating. I know you're teaching for the nonprofit partnership coming soon.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you're doing out there.
Sure.
Leslie.
Absolutely. I love it.
And God bless you for it.
Thank you. You take care. Aloha.
Aloha.